It was early October when I came home from the woods. I had just finished a 2-month wilderness program at a place called Bear Creek Reserve. It was supposed to be part rehab, part character-building experience for troubled kids. I can't remember much from it, just fragments like flashbacks in a bad dream. I remember the trees, how tall they were, the silence at night, and the time I got separated from my group during a trail exercise. That's when things started to feel off. I made it back to camp just before sundown, but I didn't see a single soul there. No instructors, no campers, just smoke curling out of the dining hall chimney like everything was normal. When I finally came home, my mom looked like she'd seen a ghost. "See, Cole?" she said, her voice small. She stepped forward, stared at me for a long second, then hugged me so tightly I thought she might crack my ribs. I could see my dad standing in the kitchen doorway. He didn't say a word. He just stared, then turned and walked into his office. I heard the lock click behind him. He hadn't spoken to me since before I left, probably still pissed about what happened in July. I'd broken into his gun safe with my friend Jonah. We were just messing around, but Jonah pulled the trigger on one of the pistols. Shot a hole through the basement wall. Nobody got hurt, but the sound brought my dad running like a storm. "You think this is a game?" he had yelled. "You're lucky no one's dead." I thought I was going to get sent away permanently, but instead they enrolled me in Bear Creek's restorative outdoor experience. That night, my sister Laurel knocked on my door. She handed me a plate of cold spaghetti and garlic bread. Dad still sulking. "Mom said to give you this," she mumbled. She looked older, like she'd aged 3 years and 2 months. Her black eyeliner was smudged. Her hoodie smelled like cigarettes and wet pine. "You going somewhere?" I asked, eyeing her boots. "No, I always look like I'm about to hike into Mordor," she said, rolling her eyes. "Do Mom and Dad know about the smoking?" She stared at me. "Do they know about your special folder in the closet?" "Point taken," I said, stuffing my mouth with spaghetti. That night, I heard her window squeak open after midnight. I stayed in bed and let sleep take me. In the morning, she was back at the table, hair a mess, drinking stale coffee from her Metallica mug. Dad didn't say a word, just sipped his own black coffee and hid behind the newspaper. He always needed 2 cups before acknowledging our existence. Today, he seemed colder than usual, like there was something underneath the silence waiting to snap. "Did you like Bear Creek?" Mom asked as she scrambled eggs. I nodded slowly. It was peaceful. "No more trouble with Jonah?" "He didn't come. Got stuck in summer school," I replied. Dad made a noise behind the paper. He'd always hated Jonah. Laurel sat across from me, absently picking at the toast. "Bear Creek, that's near that old mining town, right?" she asked. "Deep in the Aspens?" "Yeah. A place called Denton Ridge. Ever heard of it?" She nodded, but her face twitched a little. "We went camping there once. You were like 3. I remember hating it. Everything smelled like mildew and burnt pine. Weird vibe." "What kind of weird?" I asked. "I dunno. Just off. You ever walk into a place that feels like you're being watched, even when no one's there?" I didn't answer. At 2 p.m., a battered white shuttle pulled up in front of our house with Bear Creek Reserve stenciled on the side in fading green letters. I remembered this bus. The way the driver never spoke, just nodded. The way the other kids stared out the windows like they weren't really looking at anything at all. The ride to Denton Ridge had taken hours, winding through hills, past closed gas stations and abandoned motels. Locals in town would come out to watch the bus pass, their faces blank, like they were waiting for something. The camp sat on the edge of a massive forest, trees so tall they made the sky seem small. There were trails, an old mess hall, wooden bunks, a lake, and a rusted archery range. But what I remember most was the garden in the center of camp, perfectly circular, with a strange totem in the middle, like a scarecrow with antlers. On the 4th night, we had a bonfire. One of the instructors, Ms. Rowan, was telling ghost stories. "Ever wonder why it's called Bear Creek?" she said. The fire crackled. Long ago, the forest here was believed to be watched over by something ancient. The tribes called it the Hollow Watcher, a guardian spirit. It wasn't evil, not exactly, but it didn't like outsiders, especially ones who didn't belong. What do you mean, didn't belong? I'd asked. Ms. Rowan looked straight at me. Things that aren't supposed to be here. Things that step into this world wearing the wrong skin. I didn't sleep much that night. A week later, Ms. Rowan fell ill. At first, she just stopped coming to meals. Then she stopped leaving her cabin altogether. Some said she was in town getting help. Others whispered she'd gone missing in the woods. One counselor said, she just left. No goodbye. People disappear out here sometimes. I started keeping to myself. The other kids got weird. Blank stares. Forced smiles. One boy scratched the same word into his bunk post over and over, return. Then came the final hike. I lagged behind on purpose. I don't know why. Maybe I was hoping to find something that would make sense of it all. Instead, I found her. "See, Cole?" A voice whispered through the trees. I stopped. "Cole, please, help me." It was Ms. Rowan's voice. I turned toward the sound, stepping off the path. "Follow me, children," the voice said again, but there were no other children nearby. "Ms. Rowan?" I called out. No answer. Just whined through the pines. I kept walking until the forest changed. The trees seemed wrong, too close together, too quiet. I turned around and realized I didn't know which way I'd come from. I ran in one direction, then another. The trees closed in. Eventually, I found the trail again. Or maybe a different trail. But somehow I made it back. And now I was home. Only something was off. My mom's tears didn't stop for hours. My dad didn't come out of the office. Laurel kept staring at me like she was waiting for me to blink first. That evening, I heard a muffled bang from downstairs. A heavy thud. Laurel came sprinting down the stairs and froze when she saw me sitting at the kitchen table. Her face went pale. "What the hell?" she whispered. I stood up. "Laurel?" She bolted back upstairs. I followed slowly. The door to Dad's office was cracked open now. I looked inside. Blood. A gun on the floor. He was slumped over his desk, a splatter of red across the wall. Mom was still downstairs, rocking back and forth in the kitchen, whispering my name like a prayer. I picked up the phone. Laurel was already on the other line, whispering to someone. "Yes, 911? It's my brother. I don't know what's happening. My dad, he shot himself." Pause. "No, that's not it. You don't understand. My brother, he died at Bear Creek. They found his body in the woods. We buried him last week." Another pause. "Whatever came home with us, it's wearing his face." It had been 10 years since I last stepped through the large blue front door of the house I once called home. The old welcome mat was still there, but the warmth it used to promise had long faded. My family didn't leave this place. We were pushed out, forced to abandon it after the day that shattered everything. The day my dad took his own life. The day my mother lost her mind. The day my brother came back from the dead. They tried to resell the house after we left, but no one wanted it. Hard to blame them. How do you sell a house haunted by suicide and sorrow? My brother Max had vanished during the last few days of a summer camp trip. He'd gone to this off-the-map place called Camp Manatari, just outside a creepy old town named Sleepy Falls. One of those forgotten towns that's not on any GPS, the kind you can only find if someone who's been there shows you the way. When we got the call that Max had gone missing, we packed the car and drove the 4 hours to the camp in silence. Dad stared straight ahead the entire time. I kept my eyes on the road signs. The only sound was my mother whispering to herself in the back seat over and over, "My baby boy, we'll find you, we'll find you." Sleepy Falls hadn't changed since I'd been there as a kid, and it still felt wrong. As we drove through the town's small market square, the locals stepped out of their stores to watch us pass. Not one smile. Not one wave. Just blank, suspicious stares. It wasn't curiosity, it was warning. At the edge of town stood Camp Manatari. A tall, rail-thin man greeted us at the gate. His black hair was chopped into a jagged bowl cut, and thick glasses perched awkwardly on his nose. "Hello, I'm Simon, one of the counselors here. You must be the Turners," he said, reaching out to shake my dad's hand. "Grant Turner. This is my wife Nicole and our daughter Riley," my father replied stiffly. Simon gave us a tight smile. "We've got the local sheriff and his 2 deputies helping with the search," he explained. "That's it," I snapped. "No state police? No FBI? My brother's missing and you've got 3 people looking for him?" "Riley," Dad barked. His voice cracked like a whip. He almost never raised his voice, so when he did, it stopped me cold. Simon cleared his throat. "The town prefers to handle things quietly. Besides, our other counselors and some of the campers are helping too. We're doing everything we can." "We'll help," my dad said flatly. My mom and I both nodded. The search went through the night and into the early morning. We took shifts, one group scouring the forest while the others rested back at camp. I joined the night search with Dad and Simon. We found nothing. No clothes. No blood. Not even footprints. It was like Max had vanished into thin air. At sunrise, we came back to camp. Simon handed me a blue plastic mug. "Coffee?" "Sure," I mumbled, taking it. He stared at me for a moment too long. I raised an eyebrow. "You good?" I asked. "Oh, sorry," he muttered. "Didn't mean to stare." I shrugged. "It's fine." I tried making small talk to shake off the tension. "So, you a regular volunteer here?" Simon hesitated. "Actually, I'm local. Live in town with my uncle." "Oh, is everyone in Sleepy Falls always that welcoming?" He chuckled nervously. "Well, we don't get many outsiders. People get curious." "Curious?" I muttered. "More like suspicious." I tried a different question. "So if you're from here, I bet you know these woods well." Simon's eyes flicked to the tree line. "Not really. The forest changes. After summer." I blinked. "What?" He caught himself. "It's just a saying. You know, when the seasons change, the trees look different. Everything blends together." Before I could press him, a deputy sprinted into camp. "We found something." Dad was on his feet instantly. He looked like a ghost, pale, hollow-eyed, barely standing. "Show me," he ordered. They led us to a shallow creek deep in the woods. Max's body lay face down in the water. Naked. Broken. His back had been torn open, spine exposed. They said it was animal predation, that hypothermia could explain why he'd taken off his clothes. But no explanation made it feel real. We brought him home and buried him. The funeral was quiet. Open casket. They did their best to make him look at peace, but his face, God, his face looked empty. I kept waiting for him to sit up and crack a joke. He never did. At the funeral, Max's best friend Benny came up to me sniffling. "I screwed up," he sobbed. "If I hadn't flunked summer school, I could have been there. I could have helped him." I hugged him. Tried to be strong. That's what everyone expected of me. A week slipped by, but Dad never left the den. He ate there, slept there, and the only times I saw him were when he shuffled to the bathroom, head low, feet dragging. Mom moved into Max's room. She said it still smelled like him, like that fruity shampoo he used and the old flannel blanket he always wrapped around himself while watching cartoons. At night, I heard her crying into his pillow through the walls. I wanted to sneak out a few times, just vanish into the dark and leave it all behind. But I couldn't. Something kept me glued there. Maybe guilt. Maybe fear. Maybe both. One morning, I was lying on my bed, music in my ears, staring at the old posters taped to my ceiling. Then I heard a sharp, loud pop from downstairs. It wasn't a firecracker or something falling. It was the kind of sound that made your bones rattle. A gunshot. I ripped off my headphones and bolted down the stairs. What the hell happened? I shouted as I stumbled into the kitchen. And then, I saw it. My mother on her knees, cradling something. No, someone. But it wasn't him. Not really. It looked like Max, but it wasn't right. His skin drooped like loose cloth, hanging weirdly on his bones. His eyes were too wide, too still. It was like something had pulled a mask of him over its face. I backed up, trembling. What the? No. No, no, no. I cried out and sprinted back upstairs, slamming my door behind me. The cordless phone was sitting on my bed. I grabbed it and called 911 with shaking hands. But between the rings, I heard it. A soft, almost invisible click. Like someone picking up the line on another phone. That sound. Max used to do it all the time, listening in on my calls. Was listening now. 911, what is your emergency? The operator asked. Please send someone. I'm at 3232 West Holly Lane. Something's in my house. My dad he might have shot himself, and my brother, he's dead, but he's here, please. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to slow down, the dispatcher said, voice cautious. You're saying your brother is? He's dead. We buried him last week. But something that looks like him is here. There was silence on the line. Ma'am, is this a prank call? No. Please just send someone. He shot my dad, I think. Please hurry. I hung up, praying they'd take it seriously. Then came the knock on my bedroom door. Arlie, came a voice, stuttering like it was trying to remember how to talk. Elamian, cartoons are on. My blood froze. I moved to the window and quietly unlocked it. Mom made pancakes, it said again. See, come down. Wash up first. It was Max's voice. But off. The timing. The tone. Like someone trying to act like him using fragments from old home videos. I climbed out the window. I'd done it before, but never this fast. Halfway down the trellis, something slammed against my bedroom door from the inside. Hard. Again and again. The sound of wood splintering. I couldn't wait. I jumped. I hit the bushes below with a painful crash. Thorns scraped my arms, but nothing broke. I limped to the back of the house, crawling through the open window of Dad's study. What I saw stopped my heart. Dad sat in his recliner. His head was tilted back, blood caked to the wall behind him. His prized 1911 pistol was on the floor beside his hand. Papers were scattered everywhere. Handwritten notes, some barely legible. Suicide letters. So many of them. Dated across days. It looked like he'd been writing and rewriting them, like he knew something was coming and was trying to prepare for it. The thing pretending to be Max must have been the final push. I scanned the cabinet. The shotgun was still there, open. I knew how to use that. Dad taught me. I loaded it, 3 buckshot, 2 slugs, 1 in the chamber. I grabbed extra shells and stuffed them into my flannel shirt pocket. My hands were shaking, but I knew what I had to do. I opened the study door quietly and moved down the hall. Mom, I whispered. She was in the kitchen, kneeling on the tile, just stirring the air with a whisk. There was no bowl. Mom, please. We need to go. She stood slowly and turned to me. Oh, Riley, there you are. Can you tell your brother to come wash up? I'm making pancakes. She smiled, but her eyes were empty. I cursed under my breath and headed up the stairs, ready for the thing to lunge. But it didn't. My room was wrecked, door hanging off the hinges, but it wasn't there. Max's room was untouched. Then I heard it, the TV blaring cartoons from the living room. I crept down. Mom was still in the kitchen, unmoving. There it was, sitting on the couch watching TV like it belonged there. I raised the shotgun, aimed for its head. Is it time for cartoons? It said in Max's voice. This time almost perfect. Its head spun around like an owl's, eyes black and glassy like a dead deer's. I fired. The slug clipped the side of its head, making it screech. It leapt up, onto the ceiling, limbs twisting like roots. Its body warped as it scuttled over me. I fired again, this time right into its chest. It fell hard, pinning me beneath it. I gagged as black, sap-like blood oozed from its wounds. It smelled like rotting meat and sewage. I clawed my way out until it grabbed my ankle. Its fingers split into tendrils of thorns and bark, wrapping around my leg. Its skull pulsed where I'd shot it earlier. Then its face began peeling open, revealing rows of splintered bone, like teeth in a wooden grinder. I reached for the shotgun. Just out of reach, the tendrils crawled up my thigh. I threw myself backward, tearing skin. My fingers grazed the barrel. I yanked it toward me, chambered around. I fired straight into its open maw. The buckshot shredded its face in a blast of black gore. It howled and flung itself back, crashing through the living room window. Silence, then sirens. The police didn't believe a word of it. Said it was trauma, delusion. That my mind snapped after losing Max and Dad in such a short span. They never found the creature. They put Mom in a care facility. She never came back from whatever world she escaped into. Every time I visit, she says the same thing. Tell Max to come wash up. I'm making pancakes. So why am I back? Because I've been doing my research. And I know it came from the woods beyond Sleepy Falls. People have seen things there. Heard whispers. Watched shadows that shouldn't move. I could have grabbed any weapon. But I came back for this shotgun. The one I killed it with once. Because next time, I'm going into the forest. And I'm not coming out until I end whatever that thing was, for good. The rain had been falling for hours, a slow, cold drizzle that soaked the streets and clung to the bare branches of the trees lining Millard Avenue. The sky was a dark, bruised purple, heavy and swollen with threat, like something waiting to burst. Inside a cramped, cluttered apartment above a shuttered bakery, Jackson Green was losing his mind. The wall isn't the damn problem, Jake. Mara's voice cracked the air like a shotgun blast. She was standing in the kitchen doorway, arms crossed, eyes blazing. You're acting like you own me, like I'm your possession. And I don't know why you can't see it. Jake, no, Jackson, was sitting on the threadbare couch, fists clenched so tight his knuckles had gone white. The cheap TV was flickering some late-night infomercial, but he wasn't watching it. He was drowning in Mara's words. I'm not like that, he said, voice low and shaking. I'm trying. I got a promotion at work. The lie tasted bitter as it left his mouth. Mara scoffed, stepping forward, her hand brushing against his knee in a gesture meant to soothe but instead set his nerves on fire. He jerked away before he could feel the warmth of her touch. That moment, so fleeting, would be the last time he ever felt her reach out for him. It's not about the money, she said, eyes searching his. You're not who I married. I can't live like this anymore. I can change, he whispered, desperation bleeding through his words. I'll find a better job. I'll give you everything you deserve. Mara's laugh was sharp, hollow. You said you got promoted. I'll find something better, he promised. You're not living for you, Jake. You're trying to live for me. It's not healthy. You're losing yourself. I want you to be happy, but I can't do that for you anymore. She turned away, her voice breaking. I want a divorce. Not now, not like this, when we're ready. For now, we need space. We need to learn how to live apart. Jackson's chest tightened, panic rising. I can't live without you. She paused, hand on the door frame. Yes, you can. You have been. He stood up abruptly. Don't go. Please. She started toward the door, then paused as he grabbed her wrist. Let me go, she shouted, struggling. The tension snapped. A sharp slap echoed through the room. Jackson's cheek burned. Shock registered on both their faces for a heartbeat. Then Mara slapped him again. And again. Let go. Don't touch me. Let go. Everything spiraled after that. He shoved her back, stumbling over the coffee table. She fell, hitting her neck against the cold wood. Her cries were muffled, frantic. He couldn't stop himself. His hands found her hair, yanking her down, and the world went black around the sound of her head hitting the floor. Again and again. He lost count of the punches, the broken sobs fading into silence. When he finally looked down, the woman he loved was no longer there. Only a twisted mass where Mara's face had been. He screamed. Then, in a haze of despair, took a knife from the kitchen drawer and slashed his arm open. The blood pooled on the floor as shock and horror swallowed him whole. That night and the next day, Jackson sat beside her broken body. He was numb, shaking, unable to move or speak. The apartment was filled with a heavy silence, broken only by the buzzing of flies beginning to gather. He knew no one would come for a while. He couldn't leave her there. His stomach turned as he forced himself to dismember what was left of Mara, each severed limb a wound deeper than the last. Trash bags filled with pieces of her, hidden among garbage from a neglected week. But the torso, the part that felt like her soul, he wrapped in a battered duffel bag. He drove into the outskirts of town, to a clearing in the woods where the old oak tree stood, gnarled and ancient, its twisted limbs reaching like claws into the sky. Jackson laid Mara down gently beneath it, stroking the tangled hair matted with blood and dust. The sky darkened as twilight closed in, and the flies swarmed. He closed his eyes, wishing for a dream, any dream, where she was still alive. The dawn crawled slowly through the grimy windows of the cramped apartment above Millard Avenue's bakery. I didn't move from the floor, my back pressed against the chipped wall, where the paint peeled like old scabs. The faint smell of yeast and burnt sugar drifted up from below, but all I could taste was copper, blood, bitter and thick in my mouth. My arm still ached from where I had sliced it the night before, but the pain was distant, swallowed whole by the numbness crawling beneath my skin. Mara's body lay quiet in the duffel bag beside me. She was a weight that pulled at my insides, heavier than I ever could have imagined. Her absence in the apartment felt like a wound, but this container of flesh and bone was a festering sore I couldn't escape. I kept my eyes shut, but the buzzing wouldn't stop. Flies had found her already. I thought about the stories my grandfather told me as a kid, about how death always brought visitors, skeletal insects, silent watchers, witnesses to secrets no one else wanted to know. My hands trembled as I peeled back the zipper a little. The faintest whiff of earth and rot spilled out, and I gagged, swallowing hard against the bile rising in my throat. I knew what I had to do. The city was a cage, and this apartment was a coffin. I couldn't leave her here, not like this, not like a crime scene waiting to be discovered. Outside, the rain began to tap on the window pane. Slow, methodical, like the ticking of some terrible clock, counting down my final hours. I wrapped a coat around me, grabbed the duffel, and stepped out into the chill. The streets were quiet. The early morning traffic was a distant hum, like a world moving on without me. I trudged through the wet sidewalks, the bag pulling against my grip, dragging me down with the weight of all I'd destroyed. The old oak tree waited at the edge of the woods, its branches like twisted fingers, scraping the bruised sky. I remembered the first time Mara and I had come here, how she laughed, when the wind shook the leaves like a ghost sigh. I didn't have the strength to bury her. Instead, I laid the bag at the base of the oak and sat beside it, my fingers tracing the rough bark as if I could talk to the tree and beg it to understand. The flies settled on the soil, the rain washing the blood and shame away, but not the memory. I closed my eyes and drifted, the heavy weight of Mara beside me, the forest holding its breath around us. When I woke, the sky had turned a deep, angry gray. Somewhere in the distance, a bird called out, a lonely, broken sound. I stayed there until the dark wrapped around me like a shroud. The clearing was quiet now. The sky had slipped into that bruised purple twilight, and the first stars blinked awake behind the thickening clouds. The chill in the air bit through my thin jacket, but I didn't move to close it. I sat beside her, the woman who had been everything, and the weight of silence stretched between us like a suffocating shroud. I pressed my palm into the earth, cold and unforgiving, wishing I could press away the memories. The last time I held her was here, in this forgotten clearing, beneath the twisted limbs of that ancient oak. The tree's bark was rough against my fingertips, scarred and cracked like the pieces of my shattered mind. She was gone, more gone than just the way death takes someone. She was gone from the life we built, from the promises whispered in the dark, from the home we once dreamed of. And yet, here I was, clutching a phantom of what used to be, a ragged echo of love lost in a storm I couldn't weather. My breath came out in ragged bursts. I thought about the last words she said, the ones that cut deeper than any knife. I want to be happy. As if happiness was something that could be caught, something I had failed to hand her. The forest around me stirred with soft noises, the rustle of leaves, the distant call of an owl. Nature, indifferent, moving forward as if nothing had changed. I closed my eyes and let a single tear trace a cold line down my cheek. The ache inside was hollow, an empty space that no amount of regret or sorrow could fill. Then I heard it, a whisper carried on the wind, soft as a breath. Maybe it was the trees or the ghosts of the past reaching out, but it felt like her voice, fragile and fading. "Forgive me." I didn't answer. There was no forgiveness left here. Only the slow, steady unraveling of a man haunted by the weight of what he had done. I rose to my feet, leaving behind the last piece of my world in that quiet clearing. The killing tree stood tall and silent, watching over secrets it would never tell. And as I walked away, the night swallowed me whole, leaving only the memory of cherries and lost love hanging heavy in the air.